All right. So, good morning. We're going to be talking about all things Ukraine, anything related to Ukraine and Trump, Ukraine and Putin, Ukraine in the front lines, Ukraine and this. So, I know I'm in opening up a can of worms when I say we're talking about Trump, but we're not talking about all things Trump. We're talking about how Trump has reacted in the last few weeks to what's going on in Ukraine and what he might do in that regard. So I see there's about 30 of you out here so far. Please put your where you're from in the comments. I'm just kind of curious who I'm talking to, and thanks for joining me. Adam Rounds had already posted, and by the way, if if you post something, please feel free to cut and paste and post it later. If I miss it, I'm not trying to dodge questions, but I am trying to answer you as effectively as I can. I can't always get to it. All right, so Adam Round said, Trump is finally going to get his morning intelligence briefs. I hope so. We'll see. I don't believe a word he says, but I have to hope. Okay. If you don't believe what he says, perfectly all right. You know, the proof will be in the pudding. And the pudding so far has been a few zags selling some equipment, making a deal with the EU to sell them more. Um, I mean, some of the statements that he made toward like Medvedev yesterday, like that was pretty amazing that he has shifted as he has. When I talk to people before the election, they would say things like, if they were MAGA, they would say, no, Trump's going to be great for Ukraine. He's going to, and we didn't see anything for 5 months. And then finally, his rhetoric started to shift. And I'm glad to see that it has shifted. I don't know how long it'll be, but we can talk about it. Um, Let's see here. So comments, shall Greg be joining us? Greg is he may or may not be. I don't know. I sent him a link just in case, but we'll see if that plays out. Um, all right, Zanesville, Ohio, Ireland. Hello. Australia, Idaho, Norway, Cameroon. Wow. Italy, Canada, Sweden. All right. So, I mean, I know that my audience is two-thirds international, which is why I go to great pains to explain how constitutionally things are supposed to work or not work. Okay. So, what questions do you have for me? Like, it's been a busy week. We were talking about the airstrikes in Kyiv that were just brutal the other day, or we were talking about the airstrikes, the drone strikes from the Ukrainians today, which were pretty awesome and hitting lots of military targets. I am curious if you watched my daily brief. Let's see. Let me go and put this on here. My daily brief a couple of days ago. I guess it's this one. It's just brutal. In this daily brief, I was talking about how, like, I think something has shifted here. Excuse me. I think something has shifted where maybe it's just shifted in my own mind. I think what the Russians are actually trying to do is just destroy Ukrainian culture. Like, it's not harass the civilian population and make them rise up against Zelensky's government by drone strikes every night. It's no, let's target anything. One building is as good as the next to knock down to erase Ukraine. Tell me what you think about that as a first step. Am I wrong about that? Is that Does that sound right to you? Because I now I the comments in there were pretty funny. Like, it took you long enough, Professor. Well, I try to give the benefit of the doubt, and I try not to assume things, but it just seems like the evidence is that this is what Russia wants to do. In the same way that they wage war when they have like these artillery strikes that will just wipe out a city, and then they'll occupy what was wiped out, and then they'll move on and artillery strike it into oblivion, and then same thing. Okay, so let's go and look at some of your questions here. If things start to populate, um, here, people need to wake up and understand that Putin is no different than Hitler. Well, I'd like, yeah, sir, ideology, there's something different, but as far as just being willing to wipe out the Ukrainian population, I think that's it. Jonathan McElravy, Trump's inner circle has shifted. Gabbard has been quashed. Hegseth misstepped, cutting aid. I think there's something significant about that. I think that that's a really important factor here. So Gabbard's off to the side. Hegseth may not be the most liked by Trump right now, and that leaves Rubio, who was going to be the one of the louder voices for Ukraine. As much as you're like, Rubio, what are you saying here? Why can't you say something better than this? Like trying to toe the line, but he also, in his heart, is staunchly anti-communist, and I think that spills over into anti-authoritarian. Um, and so I think he'll be have a negative view toward Russia one way or the other. And then you have Keith Kellogg, who I think was a major player here, because as I understand, Kellogg and Sikorsky had some dialogue when the embassy in Kiev was hit, the Polish embassy was hit during a Russian strike, and Sikorsky's like, "Look, the Russians are making a mockery of you. What's going on? Like you're supposed to be the United States," and that was carried back to Trump, and that lined up with a pattern with other things that were going on, like the misstep by Hegseth and cutting aid, and Putin saying the happy talk to Trump, and then bombing the snot out of Ukraine, and that sort of thing. So I think there's something right about that. McElravy again says, who has the emperor? Who has? I think you had the emperor's ear. Was what you were trying to say? Um, it's not proactive. It's treeactive. You mean reactive? I guess I'm thinking that's what you're trying to write here. Reactive. And yeah, it's reactive, and it's not what I'd like it to be. But there's something here. Yeah, who has the emperor's ear is what you're trying to say. That's right. So yeah, I think that the inner circle has shifted, and as the inner circle has shifted, so has Trump. And I said that back before Trump was elected. Like, watch who he puts around himself as advisors, because that'll be telling. And some of his advisors were advising him the wrong way. And then we also talked about, like, MAGA seems to not be reacting in terrible ways to what's going on. I caught a little bit of Tim Pool yesterday, just out of curiosity. Tim Pool was one of the guys taking Russian propaganda money. Well, as far as we understand, it was taking indirectly, at least, taking the money that was like way out of proportion. And like, if you didn't know it, you should have known, because that was a lot of money. But he was talking about, like, well, Trump's sending these 2 submarines, and he's just backing Trump, right? So I think that and I showed you the survey. The survey had some statistical issues, but I think the survey was on balance. The poll about MAGA and their support for Ukraine, it had some issues, but I think on balance it was going the right direction. I think MAGA will just kind of stay with Trump as Trump goes toward Ukraine, if Trump continues to go toward Ukraine, which is really not what people were predicting. But yeah. Um, Yeah. So you're kind of right. Rubio is not going to do anything about to piss Trump off. That's partly right, but I can't believe that he's working with Trump after his comments, commitments about him, or I don't know if you meant comments or commitments or whatever. But politics is funny, man. They say terrible things during the primaries, and then they want to work together because they want the better job or whatever. So, but I think in his heart of hearts, Rubio is probably one of your better allies with Kellogg. Okay. Let's look through some of these comments. So this was my opening question. I asked about Russia. I think Russia just wants to annihilate Ukraine. Like, it's like a jilted lover. Like, if I can't have you, nobody can. So Benny Larson says, I think you're right that Russia wants to annihilate the very notion of Ukraine as a nation. Yeah, it's that seems like what they're trying to accomplish. Um, let's see what else here. Um, okay, so I have not seen this personally, but let's say that this is the case. Ukraine has a manpower issue, and they know it, and they're trying to hold the line and not lose soldiers, and use drones to technologically attrit the other side and stay in business. Like, if it wasn't for drones, I don't know how they would have stayed in the game, because drones have allowed them to play a very different game than what they were doing before. Game, I don't mean game in a haha way either. I mean just fight differently is what I'm trying to say. Alex Kilmore says, why Gabbard is still in place. Even if she is not active, she's occupying critical position at critical times. I think Gabbard is in place primarily because it was a campaign promise to put her there because she threw her support behind Trump. And it was like, see, even the Democrats like RFK and Gabbard support me. Like that, I think that's what was going on, even though the Democrats hate RFK and Gabbard. And so I mean, but I think that's what was going on. That's my read of it, but I could be wrong. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to try to answer whatever is most pressing or most meaningful as I look at these questions. Trump, the direction of his. Okay, so Professor Trump sets the direction and his administration follows. Hard to follow a windsock in a hurricane, but that is actually an interesting observation because he does kind of get blown different directions, and that's what my zigzag theory is. He doesn't have an ideological core. You could tell Obama was going to point this way. You could tell that George W. Bush was going to point that way. Okay, we understood that. But Trump can go this way, and he's proven he can go that way, and we just don't know how long he'll go this way or that way, and that's really the tricky part with Trump. When will Europe send troops into Ukraine? I think it'll happen. I don't know that it'll happen until after the war. Again, Europe's been a mixed bag in talking about like we're supporting and then maybe kind of getting the ammunition there, or we're supporting and then we're gonna send troops and whatever. Well, not that many troops, or not. We can't really do that. So again, I'm not going to pick on Europe because like there's so much to pick on my side of the Atlantic. So um, yeah, I just don't know. Witkoff, what are the chances that Witkoff will bring some deal other than an arrangement or other arrangement for Moscow that will allow Trump to again shift his direct support for Russia? I don't know. I guess there's a possibility, but I really just don't know what will happen with that. I don't think Putin wants to make any concessions because Putin thinks he can push forward and grab more land and be in a stronger position, and so he's he, he's simultaneously confident and scared, if that makes sense. Like confident, like I'm going to keep pushing, and a little nervous, like oh, Trump wasn't supposed to have shifted position here. What happened? Right? Like that was not in the cards. Maybe I overplayed my hand. So he's going to talk tough to look tougher and try to, I think, intimidate. But the I think the benefit of the doubt that he had from Trump is over. That's what I perceive. But well, you can tell me what you think. Um, do you think Trump and Europe have stopped listening to Putin? Yes, as far as in a meaningful way where it could actually sway him and said, Putin said this and he's gonna come to peace terms in the table and talk and that sort of thing. He told me he's gonna do that. I think that part's over. I think he'll still listen to whatever, but I think he'll consider it with much more of a jaded perspective. So, yeah, that's my read. Um, yeah, Cheryl's right here. Putin wants to wipe out democracy globally. Like he not only does what he does, and I've gotten this from a number of books about Putin as I've read back and into his background. The way that he thinks about things, he not only does the things that he does, but then he also expects that everyone else does that. So like if he is going to, and you see this in the propaganda, whatever. So I was talking about this just this morning. When I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was Andrew Perpetua who was saying that uh, Russian propaganda is trying to portray that Ukraine is targeting civilians. Why? Because Russia is targeting civilians. And so they make it look like everybody else is. And that's the kind of way that they act. Alex Kilmoff says Putin can promise Witkoff nuclear disarmament. I hope that Trump and his team will be able to call BS on that promise. Yeah, that's a real that's verify but verify. That's not even trust but verify. I mean, yeah. Um, okay, let's see what else we have here. Yeah, all authoritarian regimes, they tend to be like, it's really interesting that authoritarian regimes tend to find each other as allies very quickly. Like, think about who Russia pals around with, and it's going to be Russia, Iran, North Korea, China. More recently, they're palling around with Laos. Who am I missing? Like that seems to be um, Equatorial Guinea, like Syria before the Syrians kicked out his buddy. Like that's yeah. It's really interesting to watch. Um, yep. Well, Cheryl, you might be right here. Trump doesn't realize Medvedev does nuclear saber rattling every day. Don't tell him. Yeah, he does do this often, and he's just like he just talks trash all the time, and so he gets Molly. Thank you. He just gets like ignored because he does it so much. But yeah, um, this is interesting. Mark Mongan says, just been on WION. I think that's a Indian channel. The comments I find there, just wow. I wouldn't have thought India is such a blank of Russia. Can't wait for allies to show their true colors. Yeah. And so, but part of this is that, and I've done this before. I would look at an RT article and I'd be like, I'm sure this is getting posted somewhere else, no, or RT or TASS or Pravda or Sputnik or whatever. I look at the article, I would cut and paste the entire article into Google. Sure enough, here it is on some Indian news article, an Indian website or African website, just wholesale copy plagiarized, right? And RT is fine with that because they're spreading their propaganda. Okay, super chat just popped up, and I'm going to honor those. If somebody puts that in, the Soviet Union once created North Korea, but now North Korea is one helping Russia survive. That's a really interesting insight. Like, if you go back historically, and by the way, North Korea right now is getting drone technology. If I was South Korea, I'd be getting increasingly nervous because what Russia is doing for North Korea, like we look at what North Korea is doing for Russia, but what Russia is doing for North Korea is giving them access to technology that they wouldn't have, that will make them a greater threat to North Korea, to South Korea, including drone technology. And again, drones have changed everything. Like we're working under the assumption that we're all safe. Drones could light us up very quickly if it was calculated in a spider web kind of uh, attack. The world's changed in a significant way. Okay. And yeah, this is an interesting. North Korea was propped up by China too, and their interpretation of communism is different than Russia. And China and Russia don't they line up together, but they don't really trust each other. Like they're not really as tight as you seem. They seem. And so I was reading some articles about China and Russia's relationship, and it's interesting. Like I think like, so the foreign minister of China came out and said, like, he went on the record saying, like, well, we don't want Russia to lose, but I don't think they want Russia to win in a big way. I think they also want Russia to kind of be ground down a bit, so they're not a threat to China because that's the biggest threat to China in the neighborhood. So yeah, it's interesting how these things get together. Um, yeah. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Everyone thinks. Uh, Everyone thinks that Russia has control over where its missiles will hit. Russia has always had the policy of demolishing city blocks to kill one person in a house. Yeah, I mean, they talk about how they have these great precision missiles and they're the toughest and second army in the world and all that kind of thing. And but yeah, I'm not sure if it's intentional or if it's okay. So I think their policy is, generally speaking, that they're going to want to destroy things and then move in, destroy things and move in. But even when they talk about how they have precision stuff, I don't know that it's as precision as they say more often than not. It's like when they got the North Korean artillery and it was like misfiring all over the place. That was fine by them. They're just laying that artillery out. They're just trying to smash. So okay. Let's see what else we have here. She tends to pull people out of poverty. The blank tends to put people into poverty, and Vlad just wants another palace. I'm not sure about Xi pulling people out. I mean, like China has gone a long way, but they're also doing a lot to double down on authoritarianism in clamping down on their own citizens. Putin's male population in Moscow and St. Petersburg is still spared. Yeah, at least temporarily, that looks like what's going on. I just saw that Kaliningrad has to persuade with bonuses of 24,000 and change, like a US dollars, in order to get contracts, soldiers to get contracts for the Russian army. And it's different in different places, but Kaliningrad was one of the higher places. Okay. After the war, the ones who believe Russia's story, will they go away quietly and lick their wounds, or will they just start another one right away? Man, it's what's fascinating about this is the way that people view things, the way that people like think about what's actually happening, and like how can like Scott Ritter, how can you be so wrong all the time and then say the same wrong thing again next week and then say the same wrong thing again next week? Like Russia's, they're once they take the gloves off 2 weeks and it's over. Like, how many times can you say that? And yeah, um, Scott Ritter, Doug McGregor, that whole crowd, the judge. Okay. You don't hit as many kindergarten schools and playgrounds as Russia does by accident. That's exactly right. They're not, either they don't care or they're intentionally targeting. And my guess is more of the latter now, that they're intentionally trying to just create huge refugee kind of great. Like think about the upside. Okay, take away any morality. You have no morality and you're just thinking like this is what I want to do to people. I wouldn't, if there's no morality involved, yeah, I can destroy their morale. I can take them, destroy their culture, drive them out. And when I drive them out, I create a refugee crisis for Europe. Like it's a win-win-win-win from Putin's lack of morality perspective. It's like using prisoners on the battlefield. It's the same kind of stuff. Okay. So yeah, I think it is that bad, and that's unfortunate. Um, let's see. Witkoff has no business in the same room with Putin. I would agree. Putin was the head of KGB, and well, not the head of. Well, yeah, I mean, he did arrive at the top of something. And Witkoff has only played golf with Trump. And I like Zelensky's line about Witkoff that he's probably pretty good at making real estate deals. That's not the same as being able to do what heavy diplomatic negotiations, and he's already like very tilted toward Russia to begin with, and so that might not be your best negotiator. If they really wanted to send a message, and I don't know that Trump would do this, but if he really wanted to send a message to Putin, he'd be like, okay, Witkoff is going to come out, you're going to deal with Kellogg. Who the Russians hate. Like they can't stand that Kellogg is in part of this. We don't trust him. He's let's see, a 3-star general, American retired military general, and yeah. So that's what you do. But you're seeing the tone shift. Like okay. So I've had my zigzag theory. I want you to respond in the chat. Tell me about this. Do you think that Trump has zagged? I'm not saying that he's going to zag completely toward Ukraine fully, but do you think that he has actually zagged? Just yes or no. Just put that into the chat. Yes or no. Um, and because I see zags, I see I see a number of zags. I don't know how long the zags will hold up, but I see zags. So did Trump zag? Okay. So um, let's see. And not yet. No. Yes. Not meaningfully. Try Hindustan Times. That's different. Yes, no, yes, no. Yes, yes, a little bit. Okay, I think a little bit's actually probably one of the better answers. No, no. If you say no, tell me why you don't think that he's zagged, because I see lots of evidence. I see him selling military equipment, military sales like of 300,000 or 500,000, was that sort of thing. It's small potatoes, but still. Then I see him making this huge deal with the EU, selling stuff to NATO for Ukraine, and like talking very differently about Putin than he has before. So if you said no, or if you think no, tell me how he hasn't zagged. That's what I really want to hear. Not yet. The question is, what's Trump's next move? That's right. Um, looks like a zag. You can see it in his look. At it looks like a zag. You can see it in his face. No, yes. The zag has began. Yes, yes. Trump's zag is self-serving. Fair, absolutely fair. It's self-serving. Nobody said it had to be uh, altruistic. It may very well be self-serving, but still, it's a zag. Okay, sorry about that. I muted myself. I bumped the microphone, and then I muted it accidentally in the process because it turned off, and then I looked to check to make sure. But anyway, okay. So Trump's zag is self-serving. Somebody said, I think that seems fair. Perfectly fine. It seems like a zag. Closer to a zag. Okay. Um, Zag, no windsock, jilted, much more. Trump is a jilted lover. Yes, half a half a zag. Okay, look, if you don't want to give Trump credit, that's okay. I get it. I mean, you don't. I mean, he for 5 months he showed himself not really helpful to Ukraine, and a lot of people feel pretty bad about that. And a lot of people didn't like him to begin with. Okay, but I see a zag. Now, I asked you if you said no, why no? And I'm not seeing a lot of answers yet here. I see not yet. I want to see his actions first, but some of the actions have been making these deals and give it changing his deadline, right? But I get it. Wait another 7 days to see if sanctions go on top of that. I get it. Um, Trump is zagged, but to suit him and his belief, okay, that's fine. I mean, he is zagged. Yes, same zagging, but I still need to see action. Perfectly fine. But I see him moving, and that was what I predicted was that he could go this way or that way. I didn't think it was going to be 5 months, frankly, before he went that way. I thought he'd go back and forth some and like blow in the wind, depending on who's advising him. And that may still happen, but that's what I have seen so far. Um, Sending nuclear subs to Russia is Trump's way of appearing to be tough, but in reality, this gesture has little genuine military or geopolitical impact. More zigging and not. How on earth would you interpret that as zigging? Like there's no rational way, Corey. I'm not trying to pick on you, but there's no rational way to say that that's a zig instead of a zag. Just give him credit for that's a zag. It's a minor zag. It's not going to do a whole lot as a zag, but it's a zag. Okay. Um, yes, but waiting for the results, absolutely fair. I mean, no problem. Let's wait for the results. Okay, this is a good one. Cheryl, 20 zigs to one zag. That's probably correct. Now, let's hope the ratio improves properly, but that's probably a very fair statement. Okay, so I asked you if you said no and why, and nobody's answering me why. If you answered why, put it comment again why you say that he hasn't zagged. Um, And yeah, and this might be the case. His actions may be a zag, but he still does not support Ukraine. Well, I think in his heart of hearts, he would prefer to just get this over with and make a deal with Russia and let the good times roll. But because again, it's not the moral calculus that maybe you and I might be involved in. I think that's what's at play, but I'm not in his heart. I can't say that for sure. Two reasons Trump is helping Ukraine is transactional. That's right. And big enough distraction from the files. Who's to say? I don't know. And I'm not going to speculate about that because he's had scandal after scandal after scandal, whether this is the thing. And by the way, I talked about this yesterday. If you're calling for Trump to be impeached, remember your alternative is Vice President, then would be President Vance, and he will be well. I can't imagine that he's going to be any better. Is my audio lost again? Somebody said my audio is. Oh wait, no, I'm just way behind. Wow, I'm behind. Holy cow, I'm behind. Okay, well, let me go. I'm dropping to the bottom here. Um, yeah. Okay. So a full dedicated zag would see Trump stand behind Ukraine economically, but that doesn't fit his checks and balances policies. Yeah, maybe he hasn't fully dedicatedly zagged. Maybe that's just the bit of it. I can buy that. That sounds legitimate to me. I think he has zagged, and I think you probably have Cheryl's ratio in at play. Um, okay. I bet he Russians are having the Russians are having buyer's remorse now. They wanted Trump to be president so badly with all their meddling. They were hoping for Trump because Trump looked like more promising. And even on the campaign trail, I said from her rhetoric, Kamala Harris does sound like the better candidate for Ukraine. And that did seem to be the case. Now, I fully expected that Kamala would be continuing to slow walk what Biden was doing, but Trump has been worse. I mean, let's let's just be fair. I mean, what Biden did. So Biden could have cured this a long time ago, and he didn't, and we're still here. But Trump just magnified the mess. Okay. Seems Trump misses the days of killer deals with Russians and Queens and Mar-a-Lago. Maybe. I mean, it seems like that's what's motivating him. I just don't know. Um, okay. So if you were defending the zig only policy, I'm at the bottom now and I skip down. So I'm going to be looking very carefully. Just put large capital no and then dash and then why. And I'll read your comments because I want to know why you think that Trump hasn't zagged, like why he's still only zigging, if that's what you're saying, because this is pretty yeah, this is pretty bad. Yeah, Adam Rounds put this. Biden's biggest mistake was to not label Russia as a T state, and that's correct. I think they should have done that, and should have just poured it on. But again, Jake Sullivan and Biden were worried about escalating. Okay, so you say no, we cannot trust Trump. I get that you can't trust him. But has he zagged? Has he done anything that has been pro-Ukraine, moving the needle the other direction? And I mean, okay. Here's another one. No, Trump just undid his earlier zigs. He should have banned arms sales to Europe. Shouldn't have banned arms sales to Europe to begin with. That's fair, but isn't that a zag? I mean, like at what point do we define this as like him actually going the right direction, even if modestly, right? Uh, no, he has yet to call out the war criminals and tell the truth about the war. So when I say a zag, I'm not saying that he has to do everything fully. Like Biden didn't do everything fully as much as I would have liked him to. So that seems like a zag. What he's done is a zag to me. Um, no, why jilted vengeance reaction isn't a zag. No, okay. So as I define a zag, it is doing something that's helping Russia or doing something that's helping Ukraine. Has he not done anything that helps Ukraine? That's what I'm trying to understand. And I'm not defending the guy. I'm just trying to say, like, I think if we're trying to be fair, he's done some stuff that has shifted lately. I showed like a number of let me go back to this. Um, Give me just a second. A number of videos where I started to trace this out. let me look at this, and I'm looking the wrong direction, but that's because my other monitor is over here. When I look at it, it was about 3 weeks ago that we first started to see something change with Trump. And let me see where I can find this. Um, uh, Trump's shocking moves, sanctions lifted. But before that, there was something with it. But there were like, okay, so sanctions lifted, and then we see, so as far as a month ago, I was saying Trump just handed Putin his biggest win. Are you seeing this here? This up in the upper left, just above my head. And then, well, let me see if I can make that a different view. I'm not a great. No, that's not great. Let's go back to this. Okay, so this one here with the rubber duckies, you're seeing that one, and then up here you said, "No, you hang up. No, you hang up." So at this point, they're still getting along great, and then you see something shift, and it was here decoded. This first one on the left, just under the live decoded, like Trump's Putin rhetoric is changing, and I could see the change. And I even talked about the three phases of it. And then you could start to see things like, "Hey, send the aid." Right, this third one here on the top, send the aid. And then you see Trump saying the first one here on the top, that Trump blasts Putin. We got a lot of BS from him. And then, so it's just been one thing after another. And then he's sending, finally sending stuff to Ukraine. And then, like, people were commenting, like, "Hey, how can you say this about, made Trump like the Incredible Hulk breaking the chains?" Like, you want Trump to be breaking those chains. Like that's really what you want. Whether you like, if Putin has a hold on him, that should be what everybody here wants, right? Okay. Um, okay, so I mean, that's where we are, and then it's like one thing after another. Huge today, the Patriots, and then we saw the U-turn with MAGA going right with them, and then we saw things like, um, what was it just recently here? Let me see. The deal with the EU, and then I talked about the breakup, right? So, okay, there's a lot that was going on, and I think there's been some sort of zags, some sort of meaningful zags. But let me go back to your comments here and see what else. Anybody else say no? I don't see any other no's about the zags. No, Trump is not calling for Russia to leave Ukraine. So it does it have to, for it to be a zag, does it have to be everything, or does it like, can you concede that doing something like sending arms or the subs or smacking back at Medvedev is not a positive thing zigging toward Russia? No, no, and yes, it's getting a little better as time goes on. I'll concede it's just a little better. It's not full throated. Like, he's not the great savior here. It is, and nobody's making that case. Um, okay, let's see what else we have here. Trump's, in my opinion, no, it will always be about him. Well, of course, it's always going to be about him. Its reaction to the humiliation Russia did to him. Yeah, okay. I mean, that's fair. I think we're agreeing without. Yeah. Well, let's look at this here. Show. Well, if you define a zag to be a single step in the right direction, yes, he zagged. That is how I define a zig or a zag. You're taking a step this way, or you're taking a step that way. I didn't say it's a meaningful zag. Like Cheryl said, it's probably went like this and then way up and then slightly. Okay. But I think that's what it is. Okay. What other questions you have for me? I'll try to answer whatever you have here in the next 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll be done. So put whatever you have in here. I'll try to rapid fire answer whatever you have. 20 zigs, one zag, final score -19. Yeah, that's unfortunate, but that's probably what the math is. His ego is getting in the way, and he said he'd stop the war in 24 hours. And all, when we know that how it went, typical narcissists can't handle being embarrassed. Okay, so you don't like Trump? Fine, you don't have to like Trump. Is he going to do something that's helping Ukraine? That's what we're after. I mean, right? Okay. Um, quite other questions here. Like Europe armed out of spite of the USA, Trump will only help Ukraine not because he wants to help Ukraine, but to spite Russia. But is that a zag? Right? Again, I'm not defending the guy. I'm just looking at what actions are that are helping Ukraine as opposed to help Russia. And if he does it only out of spite, fine. I'm fine with him helping Ukraine, even if it's out of spite. Let's see. When is when's going to be next live with JP and Greg? Last one was great. I don't know. I'm on with Greg more often just because we coordinate on things. But I'm glad you liked it. I think we have good conversations where we get to see things from different perspectives when we do those. So we'll do them again. Um, let's see what else. The U.S. is now. I don't know what I don't understand what that last one was. Um, okay, rhetorical zag at best. I'll wait till he actually does something. I think I think selling the weapons is doing something, but I think we'll see hopefully something more in a week or so with the sanctions. I don't know if he'll do it. I hope he does it. You should be hoping he does it. We should all be hoping he does it, but we'll see. Um, yeah. And Ukraine has been so brave. They must have their country back, man. They're fighting like they're the standard bearers for freedom in the world right now. Um, do you think do you think Trump will go back towards supporting Russia once again after Witkoff arrives back? Don't know. We'll see. I think he now is being advised differently, has a different perspective about things, but can he rotate back and forth? Sure. His ideology, it's not hardened. It's not like set in concrete like Bush or Obama. Um, do you think Putin will save his economy with this crypto scam? The Russian economy is in bad shape. It's not about to collapse tomorrow. And when you see these videos that are like, I see lots of them that are saying like, it's over for Russia. Like, yeah, I don't see that it is. But I just did one yesterday where I was talking about just how bad the Russian economy, how fragile it is. Let me show you this. This one up here, just how like I went through and I cataloged. I had 73 different data points about, and I reduced it down to only about 2 or 3 dozen, but like things that I collected over the month of July alone about how bad the Russian economy is, and that's this one here. Russia's fragile economy, and it's bad. I mean, sales of this are down to the point that um, you know they have to go to 4-day work weeks, or Gazprom is worth less than a toy manufacturer now, or all kinds of things like that. So the Russian economy is in bad shape. I don't know that a crypto scam is going to save it. Uh, Maybe Putin returning his billions that he's stolen from the economy could help, but I don't see him doing that. What I did see though was that somebody is buying, and I don't know who it is, somebody's buying Russian treasuries, which seems like a pretty bad investment right now, unless you're maybe China trying to prop them up or something. I don't know who's buying it. Maybe it's not China. I just don't know. My guess is, and this is only a guess, it's only speculation, is that they're going to try to print their way out, which will lead to massive inflation, which will perpetuate the cycle of problems that they have. And that works with my theory that the biggest likelihood is that you're going to get into a position where the Russian economy is going to be the event that ends the war rather than something on the battlefield. Um, this is a good question. Did the U.S. pull restrictions on hitting energy infrastructure? I don't know that they have or what, but they hit a bunch of energy infrastructure just today. If we go back and look at this again, this Ukraine hits hard today. What I just put up, and I posted this just before I started here. That's why there's only 66 views. More of you have viewed this since, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, there were a number of really good hits today, including this picture that you see behind you is a plume of an oil refinery, and we haven't seen a lot of that lately. So. Uh, I don't know that they have, but yeah. Um, do you think that Trump knew about the stoppage of weapons and tried to use it as leverage to get Putin to stop? No, I think he was blindsided by his own people who thought that they were um, doing what what they thought that, like Hegseth thought he was doing what Trump wanted him to do, and went and pulled the weapons and oops, didn't tell the boss, and then it just looked really bad for Trump. And I think that's why his his guidance is not being heard as much as Rubio's. I think Rubio is in pole position right now, and that's a positive thing. Um, do you really think the president announces submarine movements as they happen? Laugh out loud. I, I mean, he's not above announcing all kinds of things. Generally speaking, you wouldn't do that, but you wouldn't tell him where the coordinates or anything, and subs are easy to hide. So I wouldn't really be too terribly worried about that. But that's saber rattling back, which you haven't seen from Trump until until the past 3 weeks. You haven't seen Trump in any rhetoric really pushing back, other than "Come on, I want you to make a deal. We're close. We're gonna," that sort of thing. So, okay. Let's see what else. Trump give gifted Putin 50 days, then 10 or 12. So how many more gifted days? Well, what's interesting about this, Kevin, is that the 50 was actually part of a zag. Now, hear what I have to say. Before this, it was, I'll reconsider in 2 weeks. I'll reconsider in 2 weeks. I'll reconsider in 2 weeks. This was in 50 days. If he doesn't do this in 50 days, then sanctions. There was an if then statement for the first time, that like where he was holding himself to something. And then at about 40 days or 38, something around that, about 12 days in, he said in 10 days. So he reduced it, not added to it. And now we're about 7 days away from that. So, I understand your skepticism, and we'll wait to see what happens. But that seems like moving the right direction, even if it's going very slowly. Um, I think this is fair. Yes, he zagged, but some people hate him so much that people can't acknowledge the zag. I think that's happening in some places. And I get it. Some people don't like him. Okay, fine. You don't have to like him. What we're after is he helping Ukraine? That's what the channel is about. Some people wouldn't like me. I'm a Republican. Trump's not my guy. I didn't vote for him, but like I'm still on this side of the aisle. So if you don't like, but I'm supporting Ukraine, and if you support Ukraine, this is the right place to be. Okay. Let's see. Putin. Let's see. Putin recently assassinated oligarch money to buy Russian bonds. Well, there's been a number of weird things happening over the last month. There was a vice president of an oil organization that fell out of a window. There was a gold mine that was seized, but an oligarch that was trying to flee the country, and his assets were seized and nationalized. And so I say that to say, I think that they'll find other ways to start to pay their bills, like doing that kind of stuff. If I was an oligarch, I'd be kind of nervous. Okay, when will the Russian economy collapse? Don't know. And anybody who tells you they know, I would be suspect of them. I would not believe anybody that says, I know it's going to happen on this day or at this time. But there are lots of bad signs, but then they do lots of bad things to go around that as well. And my guess is they'll steal a bunch of stuff from oligarchs, and then when they can't do that more, they're going to inflate their way out of their problem and create a greater problem. And you'll see the ruble devalue if that's the case. Um, let's see. Everyone's whatever happened to, if Putin doesn't come to the table, we're going to give him Ukraine a lot more than we ever got if we have to. Well, theoretically, that is something that Trump has just started going back to saying. And I've heard him say these kind of things. Well, we're going to arm them more, like just recently, and particularly his surrogates, like the ambassador to NATO, is particularly hawkish. And again, they have to be all on the same page. So, um, yeah, I'd like to see a lot more of that, but it's been insufficient in my mind. Okay, so this is interesting. I'm MAGA and I've been pro Ukraine the entire time. I don't agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene. There is a small subsection of MAGA that is both MAGA and pro Ukraine. And they're more like me than they are like what you think of MAGA, in the sense that they're like, hey, when did Russia become the good guys? They're crossing the border of this sovereign country, and what are you doing? But they constantly, before the election at least, would swear up and down that Trump is going to be great for Ukraine. He's going to do exactly that. He's going to arm Ukraine. And they were, I think, more disappointed, believe it or not, than those of you on the left who were disappointed in what Trump did, because they truly believed that he was going to do this. Um, so yeah. Uh, Thank you, Jonathan McElravy, reminding people to hit the like button. That helps this spread, because when it's highly liked, the algorithm is telling people, it's telling the algorithm that, hey, maybe you could have seen this. Um, Sorry I missed you in the early days, Prof. Found you after the Kursk offensive. You kick butt. Well, thank you. I know that I'm up to 160 something thousand subscribers now. So that means about 50,000 of you have joined me only since about May, maybe April, May, something like that. It's been a lot. So if you're new to me, I'm just trying to be as fair as possible and see as clearly as possible and provide context. I put my biases out on the table. I'm a conservative Republican who fully supports Ukraine, because my ideals, my sense of right and wrong, the demands that I support Ukraine. I mean, I look at that and I say, when did Russia become the good guys? They haven't. They're doing the bad stuff. Ukraine's defending their homes and their families. This is unjust, and it's going to spread if it's not stopped here. So that's where I come from. No, I'm not supporting Trump, but I do try to be as fair as possible to everyone, including Trump. Um, and that I try to be as fair to Biden, and you'll see my bias come through, but I'm trying. So, and anybody who's been around here, if you've been around here with me for a year or more, you can put in the comments. Am I legitimately trying to do that? Even if I am not fully, but I put my cards on the table. Okay. Let's see. So Trump was speaking softly and carrying a big stick. I'm not sure that he was doing that. I'm not sure why he thought that Putin was going to come around as long as he did. I don't have a better answer for you than that. Uh, do you think this war will last for a couple more years, or will it end with Trump pressuring to end it? Wow, that's a really good question. I don't know that Trump can actually make it happen. So again, it's not a pro or anti-Trump kind of position. I'm just trying to be as clear as possible. I so Trump is running a victory lap last week for the just tamping down the Thailand Cambodia thing. And then before that, it was Pakistan and India, and before that, it was here, and before that, it was there. Ukraine and Russia is not like that. I don't know. I don't know that that Putin has any desire to stop, and I don't know that Ukraine can stop without being enslaved. So if your choice is to fight or your family is enslaved, I mean, think about just what happened in the Donetsk recently. Um, with the water, right? Like unforced error. Now they don't have the water. Like it's going to get bad, and the Russians don't seem to care and really do what they need to do to take care of the people there. So um, I think it's just going to get progressively worse. I just read an article to you last week about how they're sending children Ukrainian children that were taken captive to the front lines as Russian soldiers. Like, how evil is that? So if your choice is to fight or die, Ukraine's going to fight as long as they possibly can. And yeah, this is true. Seems to be something in the culture where Russia just seems to be okay with suffering for a long, long time. So I don't see either side letting up until they have to. I just see. I mean, yeah, that's my read of it, but I could be wrong. Um, in Europe, they see Trump as a backstabber. I get that. I don't know why he's been like. So part of the reason that he's changed, that's a really interesting point, is because of tariffs. I think tariffs are ill-fated. I think they're a bad idea. I don't think it's going to get you where you're trying to go. But Trump just seems to think that these tariffs are a wonderful idea. There's a good portion of MAGA that sees tariffs as a bad idea. I teach, and what you see in any decent economics textbook is tariffs are actually going to be a tax on consumers. That's I'm like if you got a 15% tariff on Europe, oh yay, 15% tariff on Europe. Who's winning? Who's losing? The U.S. government gains more in that 15%, and I pay more for my German chocolate, and Germany sells less of the German chocolate. And who gains is American producers like Hershey. But if Hershey just made better chocolate that tasted better, then we wouldn't have to. Right. So he's going after these. Now, I tell you all that to say this: going after these, I think he's serious about doing to Putin what he's doing as much or more because of the tariffs as he is about Putin, and that helps Ukraine. So whether he's doing it for the wrong reasons, I don't care. I mean, like, so so India just backed out of some oil, like state-run oil deals, and in fact are starting to buy American oil. Like weird. I mean, like strange, but okay. Um, and that is a positive effect. Will Brazil back away? I think Brazil is likely to back away. Will China back away? That's a different question. I think I don't know. I just can't tell. What do you think? Will China back away? I mean, it'd be interesting to see. Um, okay, so let's see what else we have here. Wow, I'm way behind in the comments again. So I'm scrolling way down. I'm sorry if you put something in and I missed it because I missed a lot. Um, Tariffs are not for income. It's to change behavior. You have no clue. Oh, I have a clue because I've taught economics at the college level. And um, so tariffs are both for income. The income that comes in is going to be minor, but the tariffs are going to cause a change in behavior, which is right. They're trying to have people buy American. But if you want to buy something like, look, I just bought some technology that has some Chinese parts because like many things do this week rather than wait until a few months from now when I was going to, just because I believe that we might actually hit China 100% tariffs, and that's going to be very expensive. So I do have a clue because he's trying to force people to buy American and to make America great again. And that's going to happen. But if you have to buy this stuff or you want to buy this stuff, it's going to be more expensive. So it's a bad idea. And I do understand how tariffs work. And again, if you if you want people to buy American, like I drive a Japanese car for a reason because it just runs, right? My last Chrysler caught on fire, right? Didn't burn a lot, but still that was a little kind of a freaky experience. Yeah. So that's what's going on. Okay. At any rate, yeah, it's 10:58. I was trying to do this for about an hour. I'll answer like three more questions and we'll be done. So anybody have like something really, really pressing, get that out now and we'll see what we can do. Um, okay. Oh, I have a question. I haven't read it yet, but so are we all going to Crimea beach party after victory? That's a good question. Um, Crimea is both good and bad. They've been really doing a lot to devastate the radar in Crimea. They've been working at trying to create lanes with drones by attacking the radar systems and anti-aircraft and things like that. But again, on the ground game around Kherson, around Crimea, around that is well, not ground around Crimea, ground around Kherson, which is what you need to like be to push, is going pretty poorly from that which I understand. Um, okay. When will we be at war with China? U.S. Army, U.S. military doctrine anticipates a war with China within a year and a half. I mean, I hate to tell you that, but I mean, I've heard that from many, many people. I hope it doesn't happen. I think the best way to blunt that, to keep that from happening, is to show, like, you know what, this isn't a good idea doing this with Taiwan, because see how we supported Ukraine, and like, pay attention because this isn't going to go well for you. So yeah, I think that's problematic. Okay, last little bit here. What do I? This is my last one. What do you think about Azerbaijan? It's absolutely fascinating. I never thought I'd be talking about Azerbaijan, but Azerbaijan is a former Soviet country that spun off after the breakup of the Soviet Union, Warsaw Pact, everything. Um, and it's now, well, while it should be thoroughly in Russia's orbit, it's trying to get out of from under Russia's thumb, and it knows that it's occupied with Ukraine, so it's not going to really do anything. It's right on the border, and it's trying to kind of come under Turkey's wing. And this is a really bad look for Putin. Like, if you're losing Azerbaijan, something's going really poorly for you. If when you hear them say it's going to plan, it's really not. All right, my friends. I said we'd do this, and we're at now an hour and 1 minute. Thank you so much for your time and for listening to me and asking all those great questions. I really do appreciate that. I hope this helped you in your understanding. And thank you. Keep looking for more zags, because I think they're coming. Uh, Maybe for the wrong reasons, but I think they'll be there. All right. That's all that I have. And thanks for listening. Thanks for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.